stream. What beeped at me? Oh. Second. All right. Let's see what we can do. Oh, that is American history. That isn't right. We already did that. 103. Points. Okay. So, this is a little closer to my interest in history. We'll just kind of leave it cracked. Also, for future reference, I never lock the door, so if you ever like running behind, just come in. Okay, let me make sure that I actually started it, because I might have. No, I did start it, and then I was doing other things, so I'm actually behind. Great. Okay. So, this is Western Civ to 1689. I think the book actually says 1715. It doesn't matter. Like I said, I got this off of thrift books for like $30. No, I got both of them, both volume 1 and 2 together for like, I think it was 30. It wasn't bad, including shipping. Like, it wasn't bad at all. So if you want to get your hands on the books, you can get them relatively cheap. Again, not necessary. I'll get in that in a minute. So yeah, this is Western Civ. I'm Professor Holt. For my online folks, if you need me, that's what we got. I gotta remember this doesn't do anything for my online students. Okay, so you're gonna be dealing with my humor and my sarcasm, and especially, I'm a little worse than my 104. But for this, I'm going to be especially unkind to certain individuals in Western Civ, because we're going to talk about like Alexander the Great and how he was, while he was one of the greatest conquerors in history, he was also something of a dumbass. Like that's going to be where we're going to be going. And I'm going to make terrible references, and then also, as of today, I don't have any sleep. But I'll try to sort of fix that. But yeah, if you need me, let me know. We'll be doing the email in a little bit. And for those of you that want to be here in person, that maybe missed the class and you're watching this video later, you're welcome to come in. On Thursday or whatever. Just because you're not here today doesn't mean you necessarily have to be online. But if you want to be online, that's fine. That's why it's a hybrid course. Okay. So, history. A lot of folks see it as dates, names, battles, and treaties, which is just boring. I'll be the first to tell you that's not exciting. I was taught who, what, where, when, why, and how. That's how you engage with history. And, as I said, Alexander the Great is a fantastic example. Almost made a terrible pun there, and that is a level of humor I will not sink to. And we'll talk about his conquests. So, who was involved? Alexander the Great. Cool. What happened? He conquered most of the known world. Like, literally as much of the world as at least Europe at the time knew about, he had under his control. Now, of course, we had civilizations in, like, the Far East, China and Japan, and other parts of the world. But as far as, like, Europe was concerned, that was most of everything. Where did it happen? Mostly Persia. That's where most of the campaign was occurring. Also Greece and Egypt. Again, we'll get more into that in a couple of chapters. When did it happen? About the 330s to 320s BCE. Especially this class, as I mentioned earlier. Not going to be too harsh on dates here. Each test will probably have one or two dates, and I will be sure to emphasize, hey, this looks like an important date you guys should maybe know. But other than that, you don't need to worry too much about it. I mean, because like a lot of this stuff, especially in Alexander's time, was not super concrete. Like, I want to say that his death, which obviously was pretty monumental, we've got like a 10-year span of when it probably happened because of just how long ago it was. So the why and how is why we continue studying history. He was like in his mid-20s and had conquered pretty much all the known world. How did he do this? Did he have really good cavalry, infantry? Was it his charisma to get men to march, at least as far as they were aware, across the entire world for him? Subterfuge? Well, a little bit of everything. I mean, he was militarily cunning, but he was also just really ballsy in a time in history when, like, you stopped fighting in the fall and you went home, and you wintered back home, and then in the spring, after you got done planting, you then fought the wars over the summer. Like, war wasn't a total thing until Alexander, which really upset the balance of the world at the time. Also, dude drank himself to death. We'll get more into that, when we get to it in the chapter. But, like, he literally died of alcohol poisoning. And also probably some malaria, but everybody had a touch of malaria back then. I mean, you couldn't get away from it. But, like, the inciting incident was too much to drink, which, again, was catastrophic for what he was trying to build, but we'll get there later. Right, historical lens. Again, we talked about this last chapter, or last class, but this is actually going to be in the notes. Now, today, we're not taking any notes, don't worry about it, but on Thursday, this will be actually in the main notes. So, the historical lens is a term that is basically how you view history from the modern day. Some people say, oh, you got to look at things objectively. You can't. Humans are subjective. You are going to be, you are formed by your biases, no matter what they are, and no matter how much you might try to, compensate for that. We're all human, and people are like, oh, well, what about machine learning? Who made the machines? People with biases, and all the information that they're getting are by people with biases. So, like, there is no way to objectively look at a thing. That's the realm of, like, math. We're not in that. So, again, going back to, like, Cold War America, looking back at, say, Athens and Sparta, we would see Sparta as, like, the bad guy. They were somehow like Russia, and eventually it fell, although I guess technically when you look at it, Sparta ended up beating the crap out of Athens. Um, but now you look at history today because, again, social equality is kind of like the big thing. Um, how were the lesser people treated in Sparta and Athens? Like, because again, the leaders were typically men of means, men who had wealth, men who had land, and therefore money, who had power. But, like, what about everybody else? What about the other 90% of the population? Did women have more or less power in Sparta or Athens? What about the peasants? What about the many, many, many slaves, particularly in Sparta? But that's not to say Athens didn't have slaves. All the Greek states had slaves. Sparta just happened to have most of them, to the point that they reformed their society. But again, we'll get that a little bit later. And it's not to say that one is wrong or one is more correct than the other. It just depends on where you're at and how you view history. And it's not necessarily just like all the historians during this time period looked at history this way. I mean, every historian's different. Every person's different. So we're all going to look at history slightly differently, focus on certain things. For example, I'm going to tell you guys right now, we're skipping chapter 2. I don't find ancient history super interesting because so much of what we know is based on so little, and it goes really far east, like Persia and Acadia and like Babylon and like that. And also, like, I just got this new book, and I was remaking my notes. Like, that's an entire extra chapter that my other notes didn't have. And let's just go to Greece. Greece has a lot more, like, written stuff about it. So I'm going to kind of roll the first two chapters together, like my original book did. So some of the stuff is going to get less talked about. We'll talk, like, Persia, for example, we'll talk more about when we get to the Persian Wars in Greece. But yeah, so, by the way, if you do get your hands on the book, I'm skipping chapter 2, because I'm the professor and I can. I'm allowed to. Because I personally like slightly more recent history. And, like, when I say recent, I mean, like, the Middle Ages. That's recent for a historian. So, yeah, like, post-Roman Empire, to me, once we're past that, I'm like, okay, we can, that's a little more interesting. Okay. Right. So why do we deal with history? Why bother? Again, most of you that are, well, this is my 103 class, so a lot of this is probably voluntary. 101 and 102 you guys are taking because you have to. This one is maybe you're getting an elective, or maybe you just really want to take a history class. Whatever you want. But, why do we care about this guy back in history who conquered some stuff and then died? And, like, not even gloriously in battle or anything like that. He wasn't even assassinated like his old man. He just drank himself to death. And, we have those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, but, like, I'm not going to go to Europe and, like, take over most of it via horseback, probably. But it does still form the foundation of where we are today. And especially now, again, here in America, we are somewhat removed from it, but not really. We are just kind of an offshoot of Europe, and Europe traces all its history back to this time period, so it all works. And Alexander wasn't some dude that everybody loved. He wasn't like this. They didn't treat him like he was some god, even though he thought he was. The Greeks, the Persians, his own generals hated him, but somehow he became one of the most powerful men in history. And how he did that is pretty much all of chapter, well, not 3 anymore, 4. It's going to be our 3rd chapter. Okay. And again, why not the highlights? Because, you know, great, Alexander did a lot of stuff, but what about, like, the big important wars? And again, since this is the first part of history, I'd had, like, world wars. That's way beyond. Um, what were some big wars? 100 Years' War, that was the thing. That one lasted 100 years, 113. Um, but, you know, you've got the Middle Ages, which was just a lot of, like, people sort of trying to get back to where they were. And then the Renaissance. Then, of course, you know, like the plague. But, like, there's a lot of connective tissue we have to get through before we can get to, you know, the meaty bits, if you will. And as I said before, it's incomplete. Lord of the Rings without anything but the fight scenes, which, again, is basically a movie and a half worth of screen time, especially if you include The Hobbit. Good Lord, they stretched that out. But, like, you don't know why they're fighting, or who's fighting, or, like, what happens if one side loses. Again, especially, I mean, I was having a hard time keeping up with The Hobbit. It's like, okay, why are the elves and dwarves, like, going at each other while the orcs are right over the hill? Like, really obviously burning things. Like, oh, well, we're too busy being angry at each other because, I don't know, I don't like the guys with the pointy ears. But again, history follows patterns. And you can't just start, and I meant to mention this last class, but since I didn't record that, I'll try to remember tomorrow. This is why, for me, it's so difficult to watch a history documentary, especially, well, not the History Channel does documentaries anymore, but back when the History Channel did documentaries, it would start, like, with the inciting incident. So, like, if it was about World War I, it would be like, and then Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, and the world plunged into war. It's like, great. Why is one dude getting shot causing the world to plunge into war? What is all the stuff that led up to that? Because that's super important. But a lot of times with documentaries, they want to start at the exciting bit and then move on. But the exciting bit is important how we got there. So, yeah, Mesopotamia rose and fell. Greece was overcome by Macedonia after they fought off the Persians twice. So Greece had this whole thing going on. We had Rome that took a lot of ideas from Greece, which there's jokes in there. I've got a few. Eventually, the Roman Empire led to the Middle Ages, which itself rose to pretty substantial heights. A lot of times we think of the Middle Ages as, you know, dark and dull, and everybody's, you know, covered in pig poo. But actually, like, right before the plague hit, the High Middle Ages, as it's called, they were doing really well. And then the plague hit, and people were dying in droves. It was terrible. Eventually, we had the Renaissance, which itself led to exploration, religious revolution, which itself would lead to next semester. And, you know, the expansion overseas, empire building, which then itself would eventually lead to the empires in Europe clashing, World War I, World War II, etc. So, yeah, it all, one leads into the other. So, can history predict the future? No. Now, granted, you can, again, see the patterns of what has already happened and kind of have an idea of what's going to happen next. But it will help people try to make the future as good as it can, avoid the mistakes of the past. Again, I wrote this back in, like, 2012, before Russia was doing what Russia does. In fact, what was the game? There was some strategy game I had where one of the loading screen tips was, try a land war in Russia. It's like, I know that one. Don't, no, absolutely not. And then we have, you know, the history is traced by its wars and war never changes, yada, yada. Right, come on. So, if you're going to be here in person, be here in person. Come to class. This is where all your notes are going to be. Again, the attendance policy, 2 straight weeks of not being here, and I'm going to assume you're not in my class anymore. For those of you online, I will be posting discussion day things, as I call them, once each week. And it's basically just going to be, not this week, because this week is sort of a half week, so one of the days is an intro day. But once we start doing full weeks, it'll just be like, what new thing did you learn, or what stuck out to you about the material so far? Just to make sure you're paying attention and you're, alive. That's your attendance and for the online portion. Obviously, if you're here in person, you don't have to do that. The material, if you can get your hands on a book, great. There will be some points throughout the PowerPoints where I'll be making reference to certain pages in the books. Ignore those, that's the wrong book. It was my old book that I was making reference to. Now, granted, there is some really good resources in this book. I spoke to my professor that got me into history and said that I needed a new Western Civ textbook, and he suggested this one. And it's pretty good. It's got a lot of little asides, lots of images and maps and stuff. Where's the little tables? Where's the first? Here we go. It's got like the Code of Hammurabi, which we'll get more into later. Like actual source documents off to the side. Again, not necessary. I'm not going to say you guys have to go out and get it because, again, books are expensive. Again, though, I got those off thrift books and it was pretty cheap. So if you want to get it as cheap as you can. If not, it's cool. I think the bookstore is offering it in digital format, which will hopefully be cheaper, but again, if not, there are ways. But if you can't, it's fine. Again, do the work. If you come here in person, I'll hand you an exam in person. If not, I'll put it on Blackboard. And just do it. You'll have a week. If you're doing it on Blackboard, you'll have a week. Do it as early as you can, though, because Blackboard is bad and dumb, and it will fight you every step of the way. So don't email me at 2 a.m. the night before it's due saying that Blackboard's giving you trouble, because I'm going to be asleep. I'm going to be trying to sleep. And there's nothing I can do at that point. But if you're trying it earlier in the week and you're having issues, I can try to go in there and figure something out. Or worst case scenario, we can call tech support. We can figure it out if you give yourself time. Same with the papers. Don't come to me at the end of the semester and be like, oh, hey, I didn't do any of the papers and only one of the tests. How can I pull my grade up? It's like, you can't. It's too late. So, do your work. And ask questions. If you need information, well, it's just more here. Raleigh.holt@fmarion.edu, since, as it appears, most of you are online. So, if you've got any questions, let me know. I'm not so much new to teaching anymore, so I need to fix that. But I'm still working on stuff. Like I said, I just got a new book. I'm going to be trying to gradually adjust my PowerPoints as we go, which then will means I need to adjust the test. So there's going to be, what they say, there's going to be some scuff. There's going to be some rough edges. We'll figure it out. But if you have any questions, let me know. And as I told the previous class, there is a message system through Blackboard. It doesn't always work. It's not super reliable. If you want to get a message to me, I prefer you to email me. And then finally, once again, no. Because I've tried to watch it as a joke. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, funny guy saying that, oh, but it was aliens. But like, it isn't just, oh, but it was aliens. It's, oh, these ancient people couldn't have cut these blocks and put them in a pile. It's like, why not? Why could they have not cut these blocks and put them in a pile? Okay, I don't need to get on that rant again. Okay, so let's go over the syllabus briefly, which is format is slightly different than the other class. All right, do that, and then that, and then now it's gonna be the forever box. Okay. I don't know what you people online are seeing with this, but it's probably not great. Okay. Oh, I forgot to open up. Do, 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 do. 103. Yes, it says 101. Don't worry about it. Oh, that's Tri-County. Oops, I put the wrong one up on Blackboard. I'm gonna fix that. Is this right? Yeah. Oh, well, it is still 10 o'clock, 11:15, so it's Tuesday. And 2026. Okay, cool. Hey, there we are. All right. Yes, I definitely put the wrong one up on Blackboard, so not that this is, well, some people could be watching this live if they know where to go. Okay, anyway, so yeah, here's your course description. I'm not going to go over all of that, but it's basically just, how to do history and the various civilizations, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to try to get to eventually, like, the Renaissance, the Scientific Revolution, and all this, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, I didn't fix this yet. Crap. Okay, I'll fix that later. It's not mini Europes anymore. I adjusted the wrong PowerPoint. In fact, hold on, or the wrong syllabus. Yes, this is the one that I changed, but that's not completely correct. All right, let me just copy and paste. All right. Aha! Okay. So this is the text, again, if you can get your hands on it. Western Civilization, Volume 1 to 1715 by Jackson Spielvogel? Sure. Again, we're going to have 3 tests, 2 papers, and the final exam. So basically 4 tests and the 2 papers. There's a tutoring center, a writing center. These are over on main campus, so not super helpful for us here in Lake City. But hey, if you want to go to main campus, they can help you out. More than 4 consecutive. I swear I can't spell when I'm thinking about it. There we go. Which just means 2 weeks in a row. And if you miss like 3 days and then you show up and you miss like another day a month later, that's not going to be, oh, that's your 4 days, you're gone. That's not how it works. That's not consecutive. And again, for those of you online, there'll be a discussion day thing, which I will put up on Blackboard, and that will be your attendance. Yeah, there will be multiple choice, short answer on your exams. There'll be 50 questions, so they're 2 points apiece. Mostly multiple choice. Well, I don't know. Some of my 103 and 104, it's like 30 multiple choice and like 20 short answer. Sometimes that's about as extreme as it gets with a short answer. But again, the short answer are typically pretty cut and dry. It's not too difficult. And again, if it's something that's like you're not sure how to spell, do your best and you'll be fine. As long as it's not something that I clearly cannot make out whatsoever, it's just a jumble of letters, or if it's a completely different word. Because there are, for example, in this first test, we'll be talking about rivers, a number of important rivers, like the Tigris and Euphrates. And then on the next test, we'll be talking about an important river in Rome, which has a kind of similar name, and I'm not going to talk about that until we actually get there because I don't want you guys to mix it up early. But if you write that one, that's a completely different river, so that's incorrect. I can't go there. I might give you some assigned reading. I don't typically do that. Like I said, I'm kind of playing catch up right now with this book, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Again, Blackboard is where I'm going to be posting all the PowerPoints once we finish each chapter. It's where the videos are going to go, which if you're watching this video, then you've clicked on the link on Blackboard. You're already a step ahead. Do lecture outlines, I guess, sort of. I'll do a, I didn't really get too much into this last class. So, I did mention this. As we finish each chapter, I'll put them up on Blackboard. As we get towards the end of the the middle of the third chapter, I'll put that up, because after 3 chapters, we'll do a test. And typically, I will put a study guide up on Blackboard around the same time that I put the third chapter up, so that you can be able to kind of narrow down what the notes are going to be. And I'll see if I feel like we've got the time to go over that this semester, but we'll see. Plagiarism. There we go again. So I need to make sure I put this down at the bottom. I don't want to. Not that. Here we are. Bold. AI is considered plagiarism. Right, so, quick word on plagiarism for my online folks. Plagiarism is when you use another person's words as your own without giving them proper citation. If you take a quote and don't quote it, and again, don't cite it, that's plagiarism. Now, technically, if you quote something and don't cite it correctly, that's plagiarism, but I'm not going to go that far. If you tried, I'm not going to go after you. However, if you do what I've seen in the past, where I've had multiple students give me the same paper, that's plagiarism. I've had a student copy and paste an entire article about a topic, and I literally just copied the first couple of sentences and pasted it in Google. It's like, oh, you mean this article? And it was literally the entire paper. That's plagiarism. And finally, as I have included, AI is plagiarism. AI takes information that's out there, collects it together, and spits it out, often in a jumbled, incoherent mess because AI is stupid. But it's still plagiarism. So especially if you just say, hey, ChatGPT, write me a paper about this thing. We have ways of knowing that, and that's plagiarism. So, what happens if you do a plagiarism? You will get a 0. Just that's the most gentle thing I can do for you is give you a 0 for that paper. However, I will then need to contact the provost and your guidance counselor and multiple other high-level people that I don't want to have to talk to. And there's a chance that you might be kicked out of the class. There's a chance you might be kicked out of the continuum. And there's a chance, depending on if you've done this before, that you will be blacklisted from pretty much all academic universities. Plagiarism's bad. Don't do it. And as I mentioned in my previous class, people have lost jobs over this. Because, like, especially if, for example, if me being a historian, if I were to write a paper, or not write a paper, write a book, and plagiarize a bunch of sources and say, oh, this is totally all my idea, my information, and it got out that I just stole other people's work, I would not be able to work in history ever again. I would probably be fined. And as I said, people have gone to jail. Like, it is literally illegal in the academic world to do this. Again, I'm not saying that you students would go to jail because this is really low stakes, but it's pretty high stakes in terms of your future, so don't do it. Don't do it. If you want to be lazy, just don't do the test, or don't do the paper. All right, speaking of not doing the paper, do I have it? I don't think I've got it on this. Yeah, I don't have it on this, on this syllabus. I do drop 1 grade. So yeah, we have the test and the papers and the final. They're all weighed the same, so it's not like the final is, half your grade. I don't do that. So if you mess up on a test, just make sure you do both your papers and the final, and we'll drop that test. Or if you can't do a paper, fine, don't do the paper. We'll drop it. Just make sure you do the second paper or whichever paper you didn't do, and do your best on the test, and you'll be fine. If you do all the tests and the papers, well, if you do all the tests in the first paper and you're doing well, you can just skip the second paper entirely. Just say, hey, I don't feel like doing it, and I'll just, quote, give you a 0 and toss it out. I won't actually put a 0 in anywhere. It's not important. And as far as this semester, I'm going to start letting students exempt their final, but only if they've got an A so far in their course average. But that does mean you have to do everything else, all the other tests and both the papers. The first paper is going to be due. I could have sworn I had it on here, or am I actually using the wrong one? Nope, not that. Oh, okay, maybe I was using, yeah, okay, this is correct. I was just going to use Tri-County. Okay, whatever. So the first one is Athens versus Sparta. Just talk about Athens and Sparta and which one you prefer, not even which one you think is best. Because like Sparta did unequivocally beat the crap out of Athens, but also Athens ended up outlasting Sparta. So again, whichever one that you prefer. Or anything else from the material that we cover between now and like mid-October, because the test is going to be due before the fall break, which is going to be sometime in October. I'll get you more details on that later. Why are my syllabi mixed up? Anyway, yeah, because that's Tri-County stuff. Hold on, I need to figure this out. Those are. I don't know, man. I'll copy and paste some stuff, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So like, there's plenty of stuff you can talk about. There's Babylon and Alexander the Great, and we'll talk about Rome before the first papers do. So there's plenty you can talk about. Anyway, I think that's it. Unless you guys have any questions, And if you online folks have any questions, email me. Yeah, email me if you have any questions. Oh, also, those of you that email me your papers, please attach it as a document that I can easily access. A Word document, a PDF document. I have had Google Docs work before, but only if it's attached. Don't just say, oh, here's a link to my Google Drive, because then it makes me like send you a message to give me permission to get back into it. And by then I'm like 5 papers down because I've got a lot to grade. So make it so that I can get into it right away. Okay, that's actually it. All right. We will continue on Thursday with the actual material. So see y'all then.